Hey class, how's it going? Happy Monday. I left off reading on chapter 8 last week, and that was when our main character Jonas found out his assignment finally, that he had not been assigned, but he had been selected, which was a big honor for the most important job in the entire community, which is the receiver of memory. There is only one in the community. No one knows a whole lot about him. And we know that Jonas has been selected to be the next receiver. So he's going to be a receiver in training. And remember that in order for Jonas to be selected as the receiver, he had to meet 5 criteria. And those were intelligence, integrity, courage, wisdom, and then the capacity or ability to see beyond. And that is how Jonas has been selected. So we're going to go ahead and read chapter 9 now, and we're going to find out a little bit more about what this receiver stuff is. And yeah, we are on page 82 and chapter 9. I'm going to go ahead and read. Now, for the first time in his 12 years of life, Jonas felt separate, different. He remembered what the chief elder had said, that his training would be alone and apart. But his training had not yet begun, and already, upon leaving the auditorium, he felt the apartness. Holding the folder she had given him, he made his way through the throng, looking for his family unit and for Asher. People moved aside for him. They watched him. He thought he could hear whispers. "Ash," he called, spotting his friend near the rows of bicycles. "Ride back with me?" "Sure." Asher smiled his usual smile, friendly and familiar. But Jonas felt a moment of hesitation from his friend, an uncertainty. "Congratulations," Asher said. "You too," Jonas replied. "It was really funny when she told me about the smacks. You got more applause than almost anybody else." The other 12s clustered nearby, placing their folders carefully into the carrying containers on the backs of the bikes. In each dwelling tonight, they would be studying the instructions for the beginning of their training. Each night, for years, the children had memorized the required lessons for school, often yawning with boredom. Tonight, they would all begin eagerly to memorize the rules for their adult assignments. Remember, these are like their careers for the rest of their lives. "Congratulations, Asher," someone called. Then that hesitation again. "You too, Jonas." Asher and Jonas responded with congratulations to their group mates. Jonas saw his parents watching him from the place where their own bicycles were waiting. Lily had already been strapped into her seat. He waved. They waved back, smiling. But he noticed that Lily was watching him solemnly, her thumb in her mouth, solemnly as seriously. He rode directly to his dwelling, exchanging only small jokes and unimportant remarks with Asher. "See you in the morning, Recreation Director," he called, dismounting by his door as Asher continued on. "Right. See you," Asher called back. Once again, there was just a moment when things weren't quite the same, weren't quite as they had always been through the long friendship. Perhaps he had imagined it. Things couldn't change with Asher. The evening meal was quieter than usual. Lily chattered about her plans for volunteer work. She would begin, she said, at the nurturing center, since she was already an expert at feeding Gabriel. "I know," she added quickly when her father gave her a warning glance. "I won't mention his name. I know I'm not supposed to know his name." "I can't wait for tomorrow to come," she said happily. Jonas sighed uneasily. "I can," he muttered. "You've been greatly honored," his mother said. "Your father and I are very proud." "It's the most important job in the community," Father said. "But just the other night, you said that the job of making assignments was the most important." Mother nodded. "This is different. It's not a job, really. I never expected," she paused. "There's only one receiver." "But the chief elder said that they had made a selection before and that it failed. What was she talking about?" Both of his parents hesitated. Finally, his father described the previous selection. "It was very much the same as it was today, Jonas. The same suspense, as 111 had been passed over when the assignments were given. Then the announcement when they singled out the one. Jonas interrupted. What was his name? His mother replied. Her, not his. It was a female. But we are never to speak the name, or to use it again for a new child. Jonas was shocked. A name designated not to be spoken indicated the highest degree of disgrace. What happened to her? He asked nervously. But his parents looked blank. We don't know, his father said uncomfortably. We never saw her again. A silence fell over the room. They looked at each other. Finally, his mother, rising from the table, said, You've been greatly honored, Jonas. Greatly honored. Quick pause here to give you some perspective. Jonas is 12 years old. Just like everyone else, he has just received his career that he will be working at for the rest of his life. However, unlike everyone else who got a job that is common in the community, nothing really sticks out that much. He has been selected for the receiver of memory. There's only one in the community. Now think about this. As a 12-year-old, he's just learned that he has been assigned to have the most important job in the entire community. Think about how that might change his relationship with his friends and his family. Think about if you guys were in class and you were told all of a sudden that you are now the president of the world or the United States. That might change some things with your friends because now that gives you some power. You are almost above everyone else. Not like I'm above you, but you have more power than everyone else. You are the most important person in the community, or you are training to be. So that's going to change things a little bit. Also think about this. Jonas learned in the last chapter about the 5 attributes that he has, but also he was told that he's going to be experiencing more pain than not only he has ever experienced, but more pain than anyone in the community has ever experienced. So when everyone's saying congratulations, hey, good for you, glad that you got that assignment, it's kind of like, congratulations, Jonas, on all the pain that you get for the rest of your life. It's kind of like, if someone like passes away or something like that, you don't really know what to say. And no one has passed away here, no one has died, but Jonas has been honored, but he also found out that his assignment is going to be difficult. It's not going to be a joyful thing. He's going to be alone. He's going to be apart. He's going to be in pain. And so think about how everyone kind of doesn't really know how to react to that. So all that hesitation and that discomfort that everyone seemed to be feeling, kind of think of it from that perspective, okay? We also found out that the last receiver was a female, and all we know is that for whatever reason, she failed, and her name has been designated as not to be spoken. No one can speak her name. No one can give that name to a new child. And it was a disgraceful thing, whatever happened, something to be ashamed about. So we aren't sure. We will learn later on, but just to keep that in mind, okay? So we're at the bottom of 85, right after that break, after the 3 stars, okay? Alone in his sleeping room, preparing for bed, Jonas opened his folder at last. Some of the other 12s he had noticed had been given folders thick with printed pages. He imagined Benjamin, the scientific male in his group, beginning to read pages of rules and instructions with relish. That's like excitement. Like, I love this. He pictured Fiona smiling, her gentle smile, as she bent over the lists of duties and methods that she would be required to learn in the days to come. But his own folder was startlingly close to empty. Inside, there was only a single printed sheet. He read it twice. Jonas, receiver of memory. Number 1. Go immediately at the end of school hours each day to the annex entrance behind the House of the Old and present yourself to the attendant. It's like a secretary. Number 2, go immediately to your dwelling at the conclusion of training hours each day. Number 3, from this moment on, you are exempted from rules governing rudeness. You may ask any question of any citizen, and you will receive answers. Number 4, Do not discuss your training with any other member of the community, including parents and elders. Number 5, from this moment, you are prohibited from dream telling. You are not allowed to do dream telling. Number 6, except for illness or injury unrelated to your training, do not apply for any medication. Number 7, you are not permitted to apply for release. And number 8, you may lie. Jonas was stunned. What would happen to his friendships? His mindless hours playing ball or riding his bike along the river, those had been happy and vital times for him. Were they to be completely taken from him now? The simple logistic instructions where to go and when were expected. Every 12 had to be told, of course, where and how and when to report for training. But he was a little dismayed that his schedule left no time apparently for recreation, for fun. The exemption from rudeness startled him. Reading it again, however, he realized that it didn't compel him to be rude, it simply allowed him the option. He was quite certain he would never take advantage of it. He was so completely, so thoroughly accustomed to courtesy within the community that the thought of asking another citizen an intimate question, of calling someone's attention to an area of awkwardness, was unnerving. The prohibition of dream telling, he thought, would not be a real problem. He dreamed so rarely that the dream telling did not come easily to him anyway, and he was glad to be excused from it. He wondered briefly, though, how to deal with it at the morning meal. What if he did dream? Should he simply tell his family unit, as he did so often anyway, that he hadn't? That would be a lie. Still, the final rule said, well, he wasn't quite ready to think about the final rule on the page. The restriction of medication unnerved him. Unnerved means like it made him uneasy, like, medication was always available to citizens, even to children, through their parents. When he had crushed his finger in the door, he had quickly, gasping into the speaker, notified his mother. She had hastily requisitioned relief of pain medication, which had promptly been delivered to his dwelling. Almost instantly, the excruciating pain in his hand had diminished to the throb, which was now all he could recall of the experience. Rereading rule number 6, he realized that a crushed finger fell into the category of unrelated to training. So if it ever happened again, and he was quite certain it wouldn't, he had been very careful near heavy doors since the accident, he could still receive medication. The pill he took now each morning was also unrelated to training, so he would continue to receive the pill for stirrings. But he remembered uneasily what the chief elder had said about the pain that would come with his training. She had called it indescribable. Jonas swallowed hard, trying without success to imagine what such pain might be like with no medication at all, but it was beyond his comprehension. He couldn't even imagine it. He felt no reaction to rule number 7 at all. It had never occurred to him under any circumstances ever he might apply for release. Finally, he steeled himself to read the final rule again. He had been trained since earliest childhood, since his earliest learning of language, never to lie. It was an integral part of the learning of precise speech. Once, when he had been a 4, he had said, just prior to the midday meal at school, "I'm starving." Immediately, he had been taken aside for a brief lesson in language precision. He was not starving, it was pointed out. He was hungry. No one in the community was starving, had ever been starving, would ever be starving. To say starving was to speak a lie. An unintentioned lie, of course, but the reason for precision of language was to ensure that unintentional lies were never uttered. "Do you understand that?" they asked, and he had. He had never, within his memory, been tempted to lie. Asher did not lie. Lily did not lie. His parents did not lie. No one did. Unless... Now, Jonas had a thought he had never had before. This new thought was frightening. What if others, adults, had, upon becoming 12s, received in their instructions the same terrifying sentence. What if they had all been instructed, "You may lie"? His mind reeled. Now, empowered to ask questions of utmost rudeness and promised answered, he could conceivably, though it was almost unimaginable, ask someone, some adult, his father perhaps, "Do you lie?" But he would have no way of knowing if the answer he received were true. Okay, so major stuff in this chapter. Jonas received his rules for his training. Some of them are pretty basic in terms of where he needs to go and all of that. He did find out that really besides his school and his training, he doesn't get to have a lot of free time. It says right after school, you go directly to your training. Right after training, you go directly to your dwelling, which is your home. So he found out about that. He also found out that he is allowed, and once again, think about that power that I talked about. He is allowed to ask any person in the entire community, adults, chief elder, parents, anyone, any question, and they must respond to him. It's a lot of power for a 12-year-old. Okay. He also found out that he is not allowed to talk about anything about his training, anything at all, to anyone. Even if the chief elder, which is the leader of the whole community, if they ask something, he is not allowed to talk to them at all about his training. He is also not allowed to talk to his parents about it. Even if they ask, he's not allowed to. So be thinking about why. Why would that rule be in place? There's obviously going to be some things that happen during his training that they do not want anyone in the community to know about. Okay? He's not allowed to talk about his dreams at all. And once again, we're not going to talk about it now, but think about why. Why would he be prohibited? He is not allowed to talk about his dreams at all. All of that pain he's going to be going through in his training, he can't receive any medication for it at all. Anything unrelated, like if it happens while he's at home and all of that, he can still get medicine or medication, but anything related to his training, he can't. Remember, he is going to be experiencing more pain than anyone in the entire community ever has, with the exception of the receiver himself. And he can't receive any medication for that. Think about how scary that might be for a 12-year-old, especially to be thinking about that. He will still take the pill for stirrings because that is unrelated to his training. Keep that in mind. And he is not allowed to apply to be released to elsewhere or released from the community. So if he wants to leave and leave his job, leave his family, he's not allowed to. He is not permitted to be released from the community. He cannot go anywhere. And then the last one is the one that really shocks him. In our world, it's kind of known like, yeah, lying is bad, but even in our argumentative essays, some of you guys had the topic, is lying okay? So even though lying is overall kind of considered more of a negative thing, people lie all the time. Even little white lies, like little things here and there, people do lie. Some people have really big lies, but in their community, as you can see, it's not like that. Lying, it's just part of their community that lying is just unacceptable. Even exaggerating is considered lying. We learned about hyperbole this year, where you exaggerate like, oh, I'm starving, or man, this thing weighs a ton, or I've told you this a million times. All of those are exaggerations, but in their community, being precise and very specific or exact in your language is extremely important, and they will be punished if they even use the wrong language, if they exaggerate. So imagine that from an early age, learning just how bad lying is, and that it's punishable. Even the littlest lies, you can see how in the community it's just unacceptable, and that's just the way it is. So for him to realize that he can lie now, that's unimaginable for him. And then at the very end, he has this very kind of scary realization, and he realizes there's all these adults in the community, and what if they, in their instructions, also get some rules saying you may lie? And then he thinks, oh, I could ask someone, but who's to say that they're going to tell me the truth, because they could be lying. And that kind of just throws his whole world upside down. And it's just filling him with a lot of doubts and making him really nervous about things. So his whole world has been flipped upside down in 24 hours, a lot of things that are really unexpected, and he doesn't really know what to do with. Those are all very important rules, though, so keep those in mind. And otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and post this. Let me know if you have any questions about the chapter, and I'd be happy to answer them or to have a discussion with you about them. Okay? All right, guys, I hope you're having a really good day. Hope everyone is doing well, enjoying the sunshine. It's getting to be like in the 90s now, which I'm not looking forward to, but I hope everyone is doing well, and we'll talk soon. Okay? Bye.